All right, let's start. So good evening, everyone. So that's the last session on the 4 immeasurables, or at least for this point in time. Let's start. So good evening. What I thought of doing today is, like before, to start with a short meditation. We'll do a meditation on just correcting a motivation in general. So we'll think of refuge and bodhicitta. I will guide you through the meditation, but then at the end after refuge and bodhicitta, we'll also do a brief meditation on the 3 immeasurables that we've covered. So immeasurable equanimity, immeasurable loving kindness, and immeasurable compassion. And what we'll speak about today a little bit is of the last immeasurable, which is, I think, not spoken of very often. So we'll speak about that. We'll have a bit of discussion maybe, and then we'll also maybe do a brief meditation on that. Does it sound all right? You can kind of storm out if you strongly disagree with that, or you can stay in and actually kind of talk to me gently. It's going to be all right. Yeah, fantastic. Okay. So Ollie is also with us, and also Sonia. So hello there at home. So to begin with, let's do a quick meditation, but not too rushed, of course. Beginning with, first of all, making sure that we get the mind back internally. So during the day, we tend to be so busy and juggle so many different balls that our mind tends to be completely scattered. And even if we try to take some time off for 5 or 10 or 15 minutes, we still find that the mind is edgy or restless. So that could be what's happening to us now. Might be that we're still at ease. Nonetheless, let's follow a similar routine in which, first of all, we become aware of the body. So whatever input we get through our senses, auditory, smelling, tactility, flavor, taste in our mouth, if we keep our eyes open, then also whatever forms appear to our mind, and also whatever appears to the mental consciousness, just become aware of it without latching into it, without being fixated on it. Just for maybe a minute or two, just become aware with a sense of mindfulness. So we currently hear the singing of the cicadas. In terms of tactile sensations, I can feel my body sitting on a cushion, can feel my legs being crossed. There are some places on my body, on my skin, which feel quite hot. Some of them also feel humid. So I become aware of all of them. And then we quickly scan the body from our toes up to the crown. And if there's any sense of discomfort, tension, we can try to shuffle And also with a mind to massage the place and release any sense of discomfort with an out breath. Gently. But before we do that, make sure that your body is straight, that the body is upright. Beginning with the toes and the back of the feet. Then moving up to the legs, the knees, the thighs, releasing any sense of discomfort. And traveling up to the lower abdomen. And normally we hold quite a lot of tension in our bellies without even being aware of it. So gently try to release it. Move up to your chest and make sure that it is open and you're breathing naturally and gently. And keep your shoulders leveled, but not tense, but also relaxed and let them fall. Make sure that the palms are soft and gently relaxed. And then move up to the face. And while keeping the mouth slightly open and the tip of the tongue is touching the upper palate, if there is any point of tension in your jaws, again with an out breath, just relax it. And soften your cheeks and the eyes. And another point of tension in the body, where we keep all the small and big tensions accumulated throughout the day, is our forehead. In the creases and wrinkles. So again, just release it. Let your forehead melt. And having done that, let's count a round of 21 breaths. Gently, without forcing a breath, without trying to manipulate it, just allow it to flow naturally. Breathing out and transitioning into breathing in. That's one breath. And try to use the breathing process as an anchor for a relaxed and alert mind. And then setting our intention for today, then remind yourself that, first of all, we have a mind, which is boundless. And the potential of the mind is infinite. There is an infinite potential for positive qualities. So think about how it would be like to have a mind that sees reality exactly as it is, without any exaggeration, no overlays. It is completely in tune with reality. So we have the potential to do that. A mind that is completely free of all faults. How would it be like to have no anger? No aggression, no hatred. Without the thirst of attachment. To be completely satiated with a sense of satisfaction, being happy with what there is. With no jealousy, with no pride. So we have the potential to do it, and in order to make that happen, we rely upon spiritual teachers that pass on the teachings of the Buddha. And we pair it up with having freedoms and richnesses that make it possible for us as human beings to listen to teachings, to contemplate them, and to meditate on them. It's so hard to find freedoms and richnesses. So few people here in Australia, for example, do have the physical ability, the mental capacity, the interest, the time to fully investigate your own mind. So few people do it. So of course we have, in terms of Buddhist community in Australia, maybe we have a few hundred thousands of people seeing themselves as Buddhists, but how many of them are taking the time to learn how to develop their own mind? How many of them put time into study, reflection, and meditation? So few. So though freedoms and richnesses are of great advantage, it's not easy to come by the right circumstance for developing your own mind. So they're difficult to find. And we haven't got a lot of time. Death is certain. And the time of death is uncertain. Might happen even tonight or tomorrow. And the only thing that will continue with us from this lifetime to the next would be me, my mind, and the karma that I've accumulated since some without beginning and up until now. Nothing else will continue with us. Should we end up in a miserable state of existence, it would be absolutely dismal. So what can afford protection from miserable states of existence and from samsaric suffering in general, from the suffering of birth, sickness, aging, and death? And even more than that, what will also offer us protection from the inability to be of benefit to others, from what holds us back, is first of all the Buddha that reached the state of enlightenment, has gained perfect experience in the liberation of one's mind. So the Buddha is the teacher. And the actual refuge for us, the actual protection, is the Dhamma. And when we say Dhamma, we don't mean just texts and books and teachings and so forth. It is any positive state of mind that we develop in our own mind that will bring about at the end true paths and true cessations, which will become a true refuge. Insight into reality, stable concentration, based on ethical discipline. Those are true refuges, real refuges. And another thing that we trust is the community of Sangha, which means spiritual teachers, all of our teachers that transmit to us the teachings of the Buddha. Without them, our access to knowledge and understanding would be quite limited. So we think that for the sake of ourselves and all living beings that extend to the reaches of space, that have been so kind to us since time without beginning and up until now, in myriad states of rebirth that we've already taken, acting as a mother and father and brothers and sister and close friends and a lover. For their sake, we're going to become Buddhas, so that we'll know their disposition, being able to give teachings, to give help in a way that accords with their dispositions. For that end, we will go for refuge to the Buddha, the teacher, true paths and true cessations of the Mahayana Dharma, and the community of Arya Bodhisattvas. I'll go for refuge until I'm enlightened to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the highest assembly. By the accumulations I gathered through generosity and so forth, may I become a Buddha for the sake of all sentient beings. To the Buddha, the Dharma, and the highest assembly, I go for refuge until I'm enlightened. By the accumulations I gathered through generosity and so forth, may I become a Buddha for the sake of all sentient beings. To the Buddha, the Dharma, and the highest assembly, I go for refuge until I'm enlightened. By the accumulations I gathered through generosity and so forth, may I become a Buddha for the sake of all sentient beings. So then, having set our intention to attain the state of Buddha for the sake of all sentient beings, we're going to do a brief meditation on the four immeasurables, beginning with immeasurable equanimity. Thinking how wonderful it would be if all sentient beings abide in equanimity, free from holding some as close and others as distant, free from the partiality of anger and attachment. May they abide in equanimity. I will make them abide in equanimity. So then think of how it would be like to have a mind, again, that is completely free of anger and attachment, that cares for others equally, without a sense of detachment or disregard to others, but being able to have a sense of affinity and empathy to each and every living being, without holding some as close to your heart and others as distant. There'd be no fear in our mind, no agitation, no pain. So may we have an equanimous mind. May all living beings just as well have a mind that completely abides in equanimity. And there is a reason for that, because all of us equally want to be happy, and no living being wants to suffer. We are all equal in that sense. And also we have the right to be happy. We have the right to be free from physical pain and mental suffering. And then thinking, may all sentient beings, how wonderful it would be if all sentient beings had happiness in the cause of happiness. May they have happiness in the cause of happiness. I will make them have happiness in the cause of happiness. So thinking about, first of all, physical pleasure, physical comfort, physical well-being, physical safety. May all living beings enjoy that. And may they have the causes for that, for physical happiness and well-being, physical pleasure and well-being. And more importantly, mental happiness and well-being. May all living beings, without any difference, human beings and other living beings, may all of them have happiness, well-being, satisfaction, comfort. Quiescence. And may all of them find the right causes for cultivating that. So what it is possible to experience some pleasure, some happiness from causes that you develop in this life, which are unwholesome causes. Still, when we wish others to have happiness and because of happiness, we want to wish them to have constructive, positive type of happiness, and definitely virtuous causes for happiness. Beginning with ethical discipline. May they have that. May they have wisdom, patience, generosity, concentration, faith. All positive states of mind, may they have that. And just as well, may all living beings be free from suffering in this cause of suffering. How wonderful it would be if they'd be free from suffering in the cause of suffering. I will make them become free of suffering in the cause of suffering. So together with wishing others to have physical pleasure, comfort, happiness, safety, and so forth. Similarly, we want to wish them to be free from mental pain, pains of miserable states of existence, pains of sickness, from danger, from being sick. May they be free. May all living beings be free from mental suffering, from depression, from fear, any type of mental illness, and particularly from the illness of the afflictions, from anger, attachment, and from ignorance and all other afflictions that stem from them. May they be free from all those sufferings and the cause of suffering, mainly from ignorance. May all living beings be free from them. So to finish off this meditation, let's try to stay with this wishing sensation for all sentient beings to be happy, to be well, to be free from suffering as a cause of suffering. And while sustaining that, we'll do another count of 21 breaths in order to try to make the mind stay with that, sustain that. So gently come out of your meditation. And if you have a cup of coffee, then you can have a sip. So today I wanted to speak a little bit about immeasurable joy. May all sentient, immeasurable joy. May all sentient beings never be separated from soulless happiness, soulless joy. But before we get into that, I'm wondering if you have any questions, something that came up in your mind during the meditation or in between meditations. All right, so I think that as I said before, you don't hear a lot about may all sentient beings never be separated from soulless bliss or soulless happiness. I think that we speak a lot about loving kindness, we speak a lot about compassion, but not a lot about soulless happiness or sorrowless bliss. So it's not that it's vastly different to loving kindness and compassion. The way that I think about this immeasurable, may all sentient beings never be separated from soulless bliss is to, first of all, to think of the end point, which is the state of liberation. So from a Buddhist perspective, the state of liberation is a state in which we have completely eliminated all of our afflictive states of mind, which means that they can never arise again. So we can cultivate some states in which temporarily we put a stop to coarse levels of afflictions. In some situations, we can say that we can dwell for a certain duration when there is no anger or no desire. At least the one that, when I say no desire, of course, there are still things that we want and wish for, but without that desire that makes us thirsty, like the pain of being completely thirsty with desire. So the states that we can cultivate, meditate on those temporary cessations of those afflictive states of mind. But there's also a possible state of liberation in which we will have eliminated all the potentials for afflictive states of mind. It sounds quite fanciful sometimes, doesn't it? Kind of when we think of, at least when we think of our own mind, when we think of our own mind based upon our own experiences, it seems that it'd be impossible to eliminate anger. It'd be impossible to eliminate attachment. It'd be impossible to eliminate pride and jealousy and so forth. We're so familiar with our own mind, with our afflictive states of mind, that it seems to be like there, maybe not all the time, but as soon as we come across a certain object, a certain situation, a certain person, that triggered up, without wishing for, they kind of completely rush up and arise in our mind. So when we think of, is it possible to completely eliminate all afflictive states of mind from our mind? It sounds, on the paper, it sounds possible, sounds nice. We would like it to work. We would like it to be a possible reality, but still we don't really trust our own ability to do that. We think that while others can do that, for me, it would be too hard. Right, so when we think of, sometimes it's quite interesting because when we think of people like His Holiness the Dalai Lama, Lama Zopa Rinpoche, and other great teachers, it seems that is possible for them, but it's not possible for me. So sometimes it's a bit kind of, we don't have any particular reason to believe in that. But one example that comes up in my mind is the whole issue of rebirth or reincarnation, taking one birth after the next. When I think of my spiritual teachers, so not only His Holiness the Dalai Lama, but my teacher that lives in Taiwan, or Siddha Rinpoche, my ordination teacher, when I think of the good qualities, the way that they express themselves, the way that they teach, and also those rare occasions in which you do share something that is more personal, for me, kind of the possibility of doing that from life after life is quite clear, like I have no doubt with respect to them. But then when I think about me going from one lifetime to the next, it's harder to accept. So, sorry? Well, it's not that I don't, of course, it's not that I don't believe that, but it's easy to think of, like, for example, that His Holiness the Dalai Lama has done it over countless lives and he's reached a state of enlightenment, or, other teachers that I know. And sometimes when I think about myself, then doubt creeps in. Not a strong doubt, not the one that thinks it's definitely not the case, but, the start of things that, yeah, but what if I live only once? It's completely illogical, completely irrational, you can say, but it still happens. Does it happen to you as well? Maybe I'm the only one who thinks like that. It's not a feeling, actually. It's not a feeling. It's just sometimes those doubts that arise in my mind. So I think that the same thing also works with trusting that the state of enlightenment or the state of liberation is possible. When I look at some great spiritual teachers, it seems to me crystal clear that this is possible. When I think about my own ability to do that, it seems pretty hard, as if my mind is so packed with just garbage that it'd be difficult to make it possible, a kind of a complete cleanup. Of course, I'm not saying that it is impossible, because from Buddhist perspective, we say that all sentient beings have Buddha potential. So we have to believe a Buddha potential, right? We have to believe a Buddha potential. And that is based on, first of all, being able to recognize what it is. So not just to say that we have Buddha potential, but to be very precise about what is a Buddha potential and what we need to do in order to activate this potential and then to nourish it. For activating a Buddha potential? Yeah, well, that's part of the deal. To activate our Buddha potential is activated when it depends on which goal do you pursue. But if you pursue the state of Buddhahood, to activate your Buddha potential, you need to develop compassion. That is the way for activating a Buddha potential. And to develop compassion, the first step is equanimity. So I'm saying all of that because when we wish sentient beings to never be separated from soulless bliss, the way that I think about it is that first of all, I think that we wish them to attain the state of liberation in which they've eliminated all afflictive states of mind, and therefore they're also free from all suffering. So they have true, genuine, perfect, soulless bliss. It might be not the perfect bliss of Buddhahood, which is another step from that, but we begin with eliminating all afflictive states of mind. So when we wish sentient beings to be free from suffering and the cause of suffering, you can say that on one level, we wish living beings, like, for example, like us, we wish each other to have all comforts and happiness, conducive conditions for this lifetime and for next lifetime, and for all cyclic existence, for all samsaric rebirth, we wish them happiness and well-being, and also to be free from suffering. And that is leading up to perfect liberation, freedom from all suffering. So may they have that instead of freedom from all suffering. And if there's freedom from all suffering, there's also long-lasting happiness. Now, this long-lasting happiness that we often mention in the teaching sometimes is a bit kind of confusing or misleading, because when we speak about happiness, it might seem that someone is just kind of sitting with a smile on the face and has this kind of ecstasy arising in the body and mind. But often sorrowless bliss, or the bliss of liberation, is explained to be as this mind that is just balanced. There's that oozing sense of well-being. The mind is not protruded by any wave of anger and attachment. And of course, there is an absolute clarity with respect to reality. So you're not affected by overlays that your mind might put on reality. There is no reaction of anger, attachment, pride, or jealousy. All the way that you react to reality is based on wisdom. So your mind is completely leveled. And of course, with a sense of care for others. So there would be that great sense of well-being, but also a great sense of quiescence. So it's good just to, I think that the way that I think about it is, I try to imagine how it would be like to have a mind that is equanimous. Like to think of how it would be like, for example, to go for, let's say to begin with, for a day in which the mind does not get agitated. It's pretty hard. I mean, even to avoid small agitation. Of course, it's not that we get enraged every day. I mean, if we do get angry and enraged every day, it's quite grim, isn't it? But think about how it would be like to go a day without agitation, without feeling uncomfortable about someone else, without feeling a sense of resentment or spite, a sense of aggression with respect to others, without the sense that I wish I hadn't met that person, or I wish that I would not hear about that person. I don't want to see that person today. So how would it be like to spend a day without having such thoughts? How would it be like to spend a week or a year without feeling that sense of aversion to others? And then the same thing, you can also imagine how it would be like to live a day or a week or a month or a year without that sense of thirst of attachment, without feeling jealous. You know, jealousy is that interesting state of mind in which you have that lethal combination of both anger, a sense of dislike to others, but also with a sense of attachment. So they come together with jealousy, right? So with jealousy, you see something good that something positive, something good, something alluring that belongs to another person, you think, may that belong to me. Right? I want to have that. Or, you know, it'd be better for me to have that. So kind of you dislike that person, you think that they're not worthy of it. I should get what they have. So how would it be like to have no jealousy whatsoever, or no pride whatsoever? So then when we think how wonderful if all sentient beings would have soulless bliss, would abide in soulless bliss, we can start with thinking of how it would be for us to abide in that, in the bliss of liberation, and then to wish the same thing to others. So that's the end point. But then also I think that before living beings, before sentient beings reach the state of liberation, we can still wish them to have soulless bliss, in a sense that may living beings be able to be happy and satisfied with a mind that is completely, with a mind that completely abides in the Dhamma, with whatever they do. So sometimes kind of when I think of, you know, I've been living here for quite a few years now, and sometimes when I think of other things that I could have done, or when I think of other friends that I had from many years ago and how we ended up doing different things, sometimes I think that, oh, I'm so happy that I haven't ended up doing this or that, that I haven't ended up working for a bank, that I haven't ended up working for him as an insurance broker. How great it is that I haven't ended up working at a post office. And it's not to say that those jobs are not good jobs. They are good jobs, and some people are happy doing those jobs, but I'm quite happy doing what I'm doing. So, and of course, not everyone can be a monk or a nun or a Dharma student or meditator. People do whatever they do according to their disposition, according to their own situation in life. But if you're able to use whatever situation in life in order to still develop mental wellness, happiness and well-being, and then be satisfied with that, to be happy, right? So if you're working at a shop front and your mind is completely in tune with the Dhamma and using all your encounters with customers, with your co-workers, to develop your own mind. And that makes you happy. It brings meaning to your life. It brings meaning to your life because you're able to practice what you believe or what you trust, but also you have positive interactions with others and you feel that you are still training your mind. You draw a sense of satisfaction from that. So I think that may all sentient beings never be separated from soulless bliss is also wishing ourselves and also to wish them to have just that, to be happy with whatever they're doing. Of course, in a positive way. So may we be able to engage in whatever we need to do with a positive state of mind that is not agitated, that is not discontented, that it does not feel miserable, without a sense of frustration. And it can be just with simple things. Like, for example, you see a couple of people having conversation. Sometimes when I drive out, I see people playing tennis at the Udlo, at the Udlo tennis court, the Udlo Junction. May they be able to do it happily, without any sense of discomfort, without any sense of kind of this vindictive or vicious competition. Just be able to relate to each other in a positive way and have a good tennis match. Now, when you see people kind of sitting in a restaurant, maybe they not only enjoy the meal, but they also may they have positive interaction between them. And also may they have positive interaction with all the people around them and positive interaction also with the staff members at the restaurant, so that you could say that may they be able to transform everything that they do, even as far as just being simple. It doesn't have to be like a deep, pious practice of any religion, but may they be able to maintain that sense of positivity without giving rise to a mind that is discontented or kind of always kind of rambling about at the back of one's mind. Do you get what I'm saying?
I really saying that. So everybody you see or create something wish sorrow is still upon them.
Yeah, soulless joy upon them. Yeah.
Like, no matter who it is.
Yeah, no matter who it is. I mean, it's pretty hard when you think of no matter who it is, because particularly when you think of, I mean, it's easy to kind of wish that to someone that is close to our heart. It's easy. It's easy to wish that for someone that we either don't know or that we know but we don't have any particular connection with. Someone that, I see whenever I go here to the post office, I see Kathy from the post office or whoever works there now. And it's not that we're great friends. It's not that I know anything about her life. You can say that in some sense we're like strangers. But still, you can say that in some sense it's easy to wish it to her. But when I think of people that cause me a sense of discomfort, or people that have wronged me greatly before, people that I have a history of kind of difficult situation, or you can also say that those people that we totally disagree with in terms of their political views. We live in such a polarized world, where politics become. It seems that now, particularly at this point in time, any political discussion that we have might be fused with a lot of kind of tension and bad feeling and kind of. So being able to wish soulless happiness, soulless joy to someone like that becomes harder. I mean, it's hard to transform that to be a genuine feeling. So we might say that, but the process of transforming the words to something that is a deep heart or deep heartfelt sensation, something that is pretty hard. I mean, particularly, I think that, when I think of politicians, which I disagree with, I'm almost tempted to say that I dislike, but it doesn't sound like the right word in this context, right? So if I think of politicians that I strongly disagree with the views, with the policies, with the message that they bring, with the type of vibe that they bring into the public sphere, it's harder to think may they never be separated from solace joy. It seems that kind of sometimes a sense of vindictive mind creeps in and kind of wishes them out actually to have the opposite of that. It happens, doesn't it? Or no, or when we think of those people that have done horrible things in the life, killers or abusers, to a small degree, great degree. I mean, we're conditioned in society to wish them to be punished and to be punished severely, right? So then when we think of may they also never be separated from solace bliss, it's almost like a mind starts to resist and say that, yeah, but they deserve to be punished. They do not deserve solace bliss. They deserve to be punished. They deserve to be punished for what they've done. They deserve to suffer for all the suffering that they have inflicted upon others. So it's harder to think about it with respect to those that we dislike, that we disagree with. So here we need to, I think, make better, kind of more effort in wishing that also for people that we dislike. And if we insist on doing that without thinking of reasons, without thinking of why is it logical, admissible, why is it possible to actually wish that even to those people that you dislike, it's going to be pretty hard. Because if we just kind of think, may all of them be happy, may all of them not suffer, but without thinking of why do we want to wish it to others, our mind will, I think, put up a bitter resistance. I mean, our mind puts up bitter resistance, but to what end at the end? To the bitter end, in most cases, isn't it? Even sometimes when we see that it is the right way for us to go, it is logical, that will make us happy, the mind still puts up a fight, still resist certain things. I mean, I think that probably we know that, for example, or at least I know that meditation, consistent meditation practice does me well, serves me well. But the mind still puts up a fight, resistance. Maybe I should kind of watch something on the internet. Maybe I should read a book. Maybe I should just go for a walk. Maybe I should just kind of do something else. So when we wish solace, bliss or happiness or freedom from suffering to beings, we wish them for everyone. So wish it for everyone. So then with people that cause us harm, or people that we dislike to a certain degree. So no, it's not necessarily that someone has harmed us directly. They might harm the people that are close to us. They might have damaged the causes for our own happiness. So there are different ways in which we can still work with those people in order to develop a positive state of mind with respect to them. I mean, there's so many different reasons that we can think of. One of them is, at least from a Buddhist perspective, we say that we've been around since time without beginning and up until now. So we have had relationships with all sentient beings, basically. It might be that now we don't have good relationships. In previous lifetimes, it is very likely that we had situations in which we were quite compatible. They've acted as our parents, as a mother and father before. They were our brothers and sisters. They were our husbands or wife or partner. They were close friends. They were people that gave us gifts, gave us donations, people that served us in one way or another. So it might be that currently we have problems with them, but also we had good times with them, even if we can't remember it now. So that's one thing that we can think of. Another thing that we can think of, which for me kind of, it's always, I think, kind of when I think about it, it always helps me to at least reduce the sense of discomfort. When I think of how a sense of dislike is creating pain in our mind, like what's the point in spending energy? Why do I spend energy and time and in just a state of mind that is uncomfortable? When we think of how we react to someone that we dislike, we either hear the name, we hear the voice, we read about them, or we have interaction with them. And when this painful state of mind arises, and we react based upon that state of mind, how would it be like to have not to have that from the very outset? So anger or dislike is just not good for us. So, of course, it's easier said than done, right? So it's not that if I think anger is not good for me, then anger goes away. But as Shantideva said in his Guide to Bodhisattva Way of Life, in the 6th chapter of Patience, he says that you have to recognize what the causes of anger are. I think that, as Shantideva says, having found the fuel of anger in mental unhappiness. So it is mental unhappiness that makes us angry. So you face a certain situation, and it begins with mental unhappiness. And from mental unhappiness, anger arises. So in English, we say, I'm upset. There's a situation happening at the moment in which my mind is unhappy, I'm upset. But we sometimes tend to conflate being upset and being angry. We think that they're more or less the same. But actually, if we think of upset as being just mentally unhappy or mentally uncomfortable, there is certain agitation that happens in our mind, and we develop the ability to recognize that, to make a mental note. Currently, I'm unhappy, and what happens because of mental unhappiness is anger. The next moment after mental unhappiness, mental discomfort, a sort of sense of mental pain, is anger, with a wish to harm directly or indirectly the person that I'm interacting with, either that I harm them directly, or that they will be harmed, that they will fall from grace, that they will lose their positions, that will be on the losing end or whatever. So that arises from mental unhappiness. And if we're able to recognize, first of all, that what's happening at the moment is that my mind is unhappy. And if I don't address that mental unhappiness, mental discomfort, anger will arise. If we are able to recognize that, then we have a better ability to then at least reduce anger. And long term, we will have the ability to make sure that anger doesn't arise from the very outset. Was there anything that you wanted to say?
No,
all right.
I think it's the one where it says something about reducing mental unhappiness.
Yeah, to reduce mental unhappiness. I mean, it's easier said than done, isn't it? To reduce mental unhappiness, Shantideva in his Guide to Bodhisattva Way of Life, in the Patience chapter, which is chapter number 6, he composed, I think, contains 180 or 190 verses that address so many different situations where your mind becomes unhappy in this situation, then in that situation, that in another situation. There's this great delineation of the various ways in which we get angry, and Shantideva is presenting techniques and ways in which we can work with our mind in order to address that level of mental unhappiness. So it's easier said than done because we have a default mechanism that we've got so used to since time without beginning and up until now. It's quite a cliche, but we're used to reacting to situations with anger. We're not used to making a mental note that what's happening at the moment is mental unhappiness. Next moment, anger will arise, and anger is harming me. So first of all, we need to think of what's the drawbacks of anger. How is it harming me? Not only in terms of just, it's a painful state of mind. It's like if someone were to ask you, do you prefer to stay with anger? Or you could have an operation, a procedure in which we can take away anger. You'll retain your mental lucidity and your mental clarity, but you will no longer be angry. And to have that operation, taking out anger, you have to pay $1,000 or $2,000. I think I will go for that operation had it been possible. I know that anger is not good. I know that I don't like anger. Sorry?
You can pay to get rid of it.
Paint.
No, you're paying money to get rid of it.
Yeah. Well, no, if I could pay money to get rid of anger, you know, I would do it. You know, if I could pay and buy patience, you know, at the shop, I would do it. But it's not possible. You know, so I think that we sometimes tell ourselves stories that, you know, only with anger we'd be able to do certain stuff. We'll be able to create the change. We'll be able to kind of address a certain situation if we become angry. But without anger, the situation would not change. But still, if we are given an option, do you want to live for the rest of your life without any single moment of anger, not becoming angry at all, but still with a mind that is clear, mind that is open? I think that all of us would go for no anger. So, sorry?
Oh, a little bit of a story. The next girlfriend, girlfriend in America, walking down the street, 2 kids, about the same age, no, class was at work, and they went on to say, oh, this is that, rather than walk away, you know, they do it, don't run away. And the kids were, oh, right, there's one out the street. It just ignored the path. And the kids went up to her, positive, and then I shouted out at the top of my voice, I said, stop right there. And real anger towards the kids, and how to feel the kids, they stopped. Just as they stopped at the insect. They hadn't stopped. They would have been run over. So ordinarily, both mothers do, for me, shouting out and being angry with the kids, it wasn't an anger of it was an anger of compassion towards helping.
Yeah.
Which saved them. So, as you're saying, oh, we feel painful. There's time, in recent times, the way to measure, there's times when the expression of anger can help and the anger isn't coming out as a negative punitive thing, but it's coming out as
Well, also, you know, I think that when you look at Buddhist practices, you have practices which include wrathful means. You know, so you can be wrathful and to present a certain aspect that is more wrathful, but you still, the underlying motivation is compassion. And definitely, as you said, in parenting, sometimes you need to be more, I think, strong or firm with a child. Luckily, I don't have that. I don't have to take care of kids, but I think that there are situations which call for being kind of more firm, and that is done in order to protect the kid. You know, so when you see kind of a parent, I think when you think of a parent becoming more kind of forceful with the kid, and you know, sometimes kind of speaking quite firmly or yelling at the kid. You know, when a parent does that, it doesn't mean to say that they want to harm the kid. There's still the underlying motivation is compassion or love and kindness, because they want to make sure that the child is protected, that things go well for them in life. Of course, we sometimes goes that shit, isn't it? We sometimes can't do, you know, we do give anger away. It happens, you know, it's quite hard to avoid it. But I think that in general, when you look at, I think, parenting techniques, some of them might call for being more firm. And just as well, you can say that, I remember Izamis many years ago, he spoke about violent ways. And he said that actually, when you look at how we sometimes try to rip someone off, or to get something from another person. We might go about it with cheating and lying, or speaking softly to that person, pretending to be something that you're not in order to get something from the person. And he's honest said that even if you're speaking softly to that person, you can still consider that to be a violent act. Now, if you're trying to get something from the person, which might be actually detrimental to them. Mm. Mm. Yeah. Mm. And hopefully that will happen, but I think that of course, a skillful practitioner would be able to maintain a more balanced state of mind, and they hopefully will be less prone to anger, or at least their anger will be reduced. But also, I think that it's good to be realistic about our ability to do that, because sometimes, when we get into Buddhism and we start practicing meditation, we study and so forth, we put expectations on ourselves which are unrealistic. After, let's say, 1 year of studying and trying to practice Buddhism, we find that we still get pretty angry with certain people, and then we think that actually doesn't help at all, or I haven't made any transformation. It's too hard for me to do it. There's no way that I'd be able to change my mind. But I think that at least with anger, when you look at whether you've been able to transform your mind, you should look at it probably in terms of decades. Is your mind less angry after 5 years, after 10 years, after 20 years? Rather than thinking that, is it that after a month or 2 months, I'm already more peaceful mind, peaceful person? So that's one thing, we need to have long-term approach to mental training, and also try to be consistent with the training, and to be consistent with the training of patience. So trying to bring down the force of anger. We need to, acquaint the mind with reminding ourselves of the drawbacks of anger, and also to make sure that the remedies for mental unhappiness are at the tip of our fingers and that we use them. Because if we don't daily try to apply antidotes to mental unhappiness, and to look at our situation and try to find different points of views, different angles, look at a situation. If we think that when anger is there, I'd be able to put a stop to it, it's probably going to be too difficult. So that's one thing. And also sometimes we need to cut ourselves some slack. Of course, we're trying our best, but we're still controlled by afflictive states of mind. So long as we don't eliminate the root of our afflictive states of mind, they will still rise up. So of course we'll reduce them, but they will still be there so long as ignorance is there. And to completely rid ourselves of anger and so forth, we need also to address our ignorance, and that's a long-term process. Hmm. Yeah, two sides of the same coin. Hmm.
second two, the measure of joy and equanimity, also on that, where having the immeasurable joy, the lasting joy of the stability of that, is through the practice of equanimity. Without the three poisons of attachment, delusion, it's not by practicing equanimity, you achieve, it'll work towards achieving the immeasurable joy. In the same way of, when you spoke of the difficulties there with when you have attachment and aversion towards different regulations, particularly when you have aversion to someone, by wishing them equanimity, that they were able to operate without attachment to aversion. They too could achieve a measurable joy. How fantastic is that?
I mean, that's why we begin with equanimity, and kind of I agree with what you said. I think that it's all based on equanimity, and again, I think that when we think of people that we dislike, either those that have wronged us or those who are dear to us greatly, or those that kind of are more distant from us, but we still don't like them. When we wish them to have happiness in the cause of happiness, or to be free from suffering in the cause of suffering, when we wish them to be free from soulless bliss, it's not that kind of we think that what they've done is good. We want to reward them by happiness and so forth. I think that it's similar to what you said. We think of, actually, if someone is acting in a way that is harmful to others, the person is doing that because of ignorance, because of anger, and because of attachment. So if they're free from anger, attachment, and ignorance, if they have equanimity in their mind, they will not harm others in that way. They will not harm me, and they will not harm those who are close to my heart. They will not harm all living beings if the mind is equanimous. Yeah, because definitely we can see when we look at our relationship with others, and this is an excellent judgment of this power of equanimity. We can then visualize how it'd be like for our mind to have no anger, and also to have no attachment, and how will it affect the relationships that we have with others. So again, it's not a sense of detachment from others, but it's actually being able to relate to others exactly with the same degree of care. So then if we're able to interact with others with the same degree of care and attention, we'll not harm others, at least not intentionally. Perfect. Just do it. Easier said than done, isn't it? I mean, when you look at, I had a couple of, fortunate situations where I was around this honest Dalai Lama, and I saw that at least kind of, when you see his honest working, it's hard to look at it, what he does, without the eyeglasses of being Buddhist and thinking that is a great thing. But anyway, when I see the Dalai Lama's interacting with others, it seems that regardless of who the Dalai Lama meets, either a great dignitary, a great Buddhist practitioner, or just someone that is standing in the hallway, an usher, someone that is kind of the driver and so forth, it seems that there's exactly the same degree of care and affection to that person. At least I've seen that a few times. And I think that is the same with Lama Sovereign. I mean, not only with human beings, but Lama Sovereign is pretty extreme on a positive way, in a positive way. Well, the whole animal liberation thing and animal blessing thing, he does stuff that most lamas don't do. It's pretty unconventional what Lama Sovereign does, but still what you can see is that it's an equal sense of care to all living beings. So there is a potential to our mind to develop that. I mean, it seems to be like when you look at Mizones and Lama Sopa Rinpoche, it seems to be like it's a great state to be, but is it possible for me to be like that? Well, it is possible, but it requires a lot of effort. So any more comments or questions before we end up this session with a brief meditation? So what we'll do is we'll just do maybe 5 minutes meditation on the last immeasurable joy. So again, just kind of briefly, things I haven't said before, or maybe I said and I forgot. So the 4 immeasurables, immeasurable equanimity, they're called like that. Immeasurable equanimity, that's quite clear. Immeasurable loving kindness, immeasurable compassion, and then immeasurable joy. May all sentient beings never be separated from soulless happiness or from soulless bliss. That's immeasurable joy. Now they're called immeasurable, and there are different ways that the word immeasurable is explained. A couple of them say that they're called immeasurables because you consider an immeasurable number of sentient beings, completely incalculable. So not just like a handful group of people that are close to your heart, but you're trying to be as extensive as possible in including so many living beings in your good motivation. So that's one way of explaining the word immeasurable. The second way is that your love and compassion also, and the rest also become immeasurable. Not limited, but completely boundless. So your attitude becomes so encompassing that it's immeasurable. All right. So let's do a brief meditation on that, beginning with, first of all, again, at your own time, making sure that the body is relaxed. There's a stillness in your body and a sense of relaxation and feeling well. And also that your mind feels centered and attentive. So let's do that for a minute or two. And then we can bring the mind back to the breathing process and count a round of 21 breaths. So then in thinking how wonderful it would be if all sentient beings were never to be separated from soulless bliss. May they never be separated from soulless bliss. I myself will cause them to never be separated from soulless bliss. So first off, trying to imagine how it would be like to have a mind that is completely free from all afflictive states of mind. No anger, no attachment, no pride, no jealousy, no sense of competitiveness that wishes to outdo everyone else, to be always on the winning side, and others as a result on the losing side. To be free from that as well. How it would be like to have a mind that is free from ignorance. And we can wish ourselves to have that state of mind. And then to wish it to countless living beings. May they dwell in constant well-being, mental quiescence, relaxation, enjoying the freedom of liberation, freedom from afflictive states of mind. And even before that happens, to wish all living beings, immeasurable, countless living beings, to be happy, to be well in whatever they do. For the mind to be comfortable, satisfied, contented, without animosity or jealousy, miserliness, pride, anger, attachment, to be just happy. Interacting with each other and living simply. And we don't wish it only to those that practice Dharma, we wish it to everyone, regardless of their spiritual affiliation. May they be happy in whatever they do. without a mind of anger and attachment, fear, anxiety, depression. And those that do follow a spiritual path, regardless of their spiritual affiliation, may they be able to practice, again, without a mind that suffers, without doubt or second thoughts, without fear, without a sense of superiority that does create a division between oneself and others. May they be happy in their spiritual practice. And for those of us who do practice the Buddha Dhamma, may our practice also be joyful, without obstacles, without fear and anxiety and false expectations, without frustration. And even if we do encounter obstacles, may we be able to transform all these obstacles for things that enhance our spiritual practice, make it useful, and not be brought down by frustration and anger and depression. So with that, let's do another round of 21 breaths, trying to sustain that state of mind. And after that, we'll do a quick dedication. So then in dedicating all the virtue that we've created together in this session, also in previous sessions, we can first of all dedicate so that we might be able to develop the 4 immeasurable attitudes in our own mind. Immeasurable equanimity, immeasurable loving kindness, immeasurable compassion, and immeasurable joy. So that we may be able to use that in order to develop bodhicitta, if we haven't done it so far. If the seeds of bodhicitta have already been planted in our minds, may they never decline, but continue to flourish more and more. And of course, dedicated for the long life of all our spiritual teachers, His Holiness the Dalai Lama, Kyabje Lama Sopa Rinpoche, all the other teachers that you're relying upon, and all living beings anywhere that create virtue. Thank you. All right. Good night, Ollie.
Good night, Kartsön.
Is it hot now in Western Australia, or is it like reasonably okay?
We had a big heat wave, but now the clouds just come over. It looks like it's going to rain again. So no, it hasn't been too bad.
All right, that's good.
We're in the southwest, a bit further down.
Mm. How south is it from? How far is it from Perth?
3 hours.
3 hours. All right, all right. Like south of Bunbury, right? Or...
Yes, another hour south of Bunbury.
Okay. Cool. Maybe after COVID-19, I'll make my way.
Yes, most welcome. Please do.
All right. Cool. So thank you. Good night.